Hello. So glad you're joining me today. So, here's my little bowl of goodies, some random bits and items that I think I want to use. So, we'll just kind of see what happens with them. So, first, just like every other time, I am just kind of sorting through some of my Studio Calico PL cards and through the photographs that I want to incorporate into this week's PL. Let's see. I don't really have like a strong color palette per se this week, although green does kind of end up being fairly prominent. The other thing that I did this week is that I knew I had a lot of journaling. You'll see in the top right hand corner I did a weekend review, and so with that one I used my computer, and that's like a 9.5 size font, which I knew my typewriter wasn't going to allow me to squeeze so much into a small space. So I did prep that in advance, and there's a little bit more journaling as well that I prepped in advance for this week. Right here you see. I have this idea in my head, and although in the end what I come up with is completely different than what I thought, but in addition to the Project Life Studio Calico cards, I'm also using this Fancy Pants 6x6 card pack that I picked up, I don't know, somewhere. So I like some of the pattern papers and want to incorporate those this week. So I journaled on the bottom of this 4x6 card, and initially in my mind I was going to use this Dr. Seuss poem and then kind of cut little strips and place it white on white with just a little bit of color. But I also have this wood veneer that I wanted to use, and so change of plan. Instead I chopped that wood veneer down into a 4x6 and decided to use that as my base instead of the 4x6 white Project Life card. So now I'm taking the Dr. Seuss phrase, and I deliberately left a little bit of space so that I knew I could cut the phrase or the poem into strips and kind of place it randomly, the strips randomly on the card. So I want to kind of delineate between the wood veneer and the white, and so I'm using some kind of strips of pattern paper here, but I don't want it to look like perfectly neat. I want it to have kind of a little bit of rhythm to it, if you will. So the black and white, the pink, and I like this blue as well. Now, although I have two boys, I am fearless when it comes to using pink with my boys. And in fact, I actually love them in pink shirts. But of course, I've promised never to make them wear pink shirts to school. Okay, I digress. So I like the way this is coming along so far. Wanted to add a little touch of color at the top to kind of balance it. And so at first I thought I might use adhesive to adhere the strips of the Dr. Seuss poem, but in the end I just decided let's keep it quick and simple, and I just use my little stapler to put everything down. And so I actually really like this card, the way it turned out. It's a little bit different, but it's fun to me and bright. And I really wanted to use some of this wood veneer this week. All right, so we're good to go. And again, I think it's a fun card. So try using, little strips of paper. I mean, I've used just, a tad, but I think it adds a nice fun touch. And since I already had several strips cut out, I decided that I would just throw a few of them in right next to this little small photo, some Scantrons. I took a quick photo of the stacked Scantrons after my students finished their final exam. So I squeezed that little small pic right next to the week in review journaling, and a label as well, and a printable Studio Calico, and we're good to go. Like, that's done. I think that's probably like a record time for me. Okay, so this, I'm jumping ahead. All right, so I'm going to do what I normally do here, and I tend to kind of trim down some of my photos and give them just a little bit of space on the sides, and then place them on a 4x6 white card. I just happen to, at this moment, like that look, and so that's my groove, and so that's what I'm going with. I might change change it up in a few weeks, but right now that's really working for me. I don't know if any of you have ever had like a crazy weather alert at 4 a.m. in the morning, but recently there was a tornado in the area, and so we got this 4 a.m. crazy, kind of like the Amber Alert sound on our cell phones, my husband and I. So at 4 a.m. we jump up. My husband's like, get to the basement. I grab my little guy across the hall and we run to the basement. We were all fine, but it was certainly memorable. So I did a quick, photo shot or whatever it's called, screenshot on my phone later that morning just to kind of note the excitement. So this little kit here, sometimes when I don't feel like scrapbooking or doing something else creative, I'll sit down with my Cricut, the old-fashioned one that I told you about, and I just kind of make various phrases and words, and so when I need them, they're ready to go, because I'm not going to do that in the middle of working on a spread. So I just kind of went to my little stash and pulled out some phrases that I thought would work. So proud. It's pretty generic, but it really is the perfect phrase for this black and white photo of my son standing next to his school director and one of his teachers, and he received all these awards, and my husband and I are really just so amazingly proud of him. So with this, that's from, I think, a basic gray kit with some little embellishments, and so I just backed it with the wood veneer, so I'm kind of carrying that the color, the wood color throughout the entire 2-page layout. And I really like the way that it looks, and it also just seems really appropriate with the kind of farmer's market natural theme as well. So now I'm going back to this black and white photo with my son, and I actually printed it out in color as well, but I like the black and white. So I'm going to do something different. If you haven't tried gelatos, go for it. I got them last week in the mail, and I've been playing with them ever since. I like how smooth and kind of creamy they are, and they really allow you to blend very nicely. So with this white digital cutout, I'm just blending a little bit of green and yellow, and then I find adding just a touch, dry brush all, no water, of acrylic paint. It helps to kind of set the gelato, and so it doesn't smudge so much when you put it into your pocket. So since I have the gelatos out and the acrylic paint out already, I decided I'm going to try another little technique. I hadn't tried it yet, but I have it in my mind that it's going to work perfectly. And so we're going to do some masking. So first I'm pulling out some tape, and I'm pulling off some of the sticky on my skirt. You can't see that. So that when I pull up the tape, it will not pull up the card as well. Now, I know all of you have tons and tons and tons of thickers and random letters. And so I also want to find a way to use them up. And so, you're always lacking an E or the vowels. So you see here, even with the week, I have different stickers or thickers than with the W and the K, but it doesn't matter with this particular technique. So I used the purple letters here because they were small, and I wanted to fit kind of this longer phrase in for my weekly title card. So our wild, chaotic, and wonderful week 20. So again, what's nice about this masking technique is that the colors, the thickers, don't have to match. So now I'm playing with the gelatos, and I really kind of want to have this gradation or kind of rainbow effect. But again, the gelatos are so smooth and so deliciously creamy that they really blend nicely. And one of the packs of gelatos that I purchased, this little smudger thingy came with, but I'm also just using a cheap brush as well. And I think I might run by the dollar store and get some of those makeup sponges, and that they would work terrifically with this as well. So I'm going to put that aside and just kind of let it set for a moment and go back to working on the spread itself. So again, I want to incorporate a little bit more of the wood veneer. Since I have some wood veneer on the right side of the page, I want to create that balance by adding some wood veneer on the left side of the page. And rather than just doing a small little strip, I decided to make an entire card out of the wood veneer. So I kind of, you know me, I'm moving from page to page. I don't finish one and then move to the next one after it's complete. So now I've jumped on to this photo of my little silly little guy. And gonna use some paper to add a little bit of color. I thought I might use these jelly bean digital cutout things, but in the end they just don't work for me, and I thought the color brown of the jelly bean digital cutouts is so different from the wood veneer that I just didn't like the way they were gonna look together. So I actually end up just not using them at all this particular week. All right, so I've added some wood veneer from Studio Calico Kit, and then just some other little wood veneer tags that I had, and then that little pink, little strip of pink paper, and the black and the cream or white as well. So what ends up happening is that I'm kind of just in little bits kind of carrying these colors and the pattern paper around the entire layout, using kind of the 2 and 3 combo, which works quite nicely. All right, I thought I might use that, but at the moment, try and see, will that work? Not so much. Looking, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I decide to use that little sticker because I felt like I wanted something on the top of that screenshot. So I end up going with that. And then this little life phrase is from a cutout that, again, I just made in advance. And so now is the appropriate time to throw it on the page. All right. So things are coming along, and my title page seems dry and ready to go. And you notice, since I didn't use any water, I really don't have any warping at all. So that's another reason why I really like the gelatos. But if you don't have them, this absolutely works with paint and even your inks as well. So just kind of play around with masking if you haven't tried it before. Again, it's a great way to use up those random bits of thickers that you have. So now I'm just pulling everything off. If you really have some sticky letter stickers, you may want to, again, rub them on some fabric first so that you don't pull up any of your white card underneath. But these were pretty easy to pull up. And look, I think that's so cool looking. I actually love the way it looks. Now, I wanted to create a little bit of texture, so that's why, rather than doing my 20 with using the masking technique, I decided to use a little bit of wood for the number 20. All right, so again, I'm opening up this package. I'm just trying to make them work, but no. So I pull out these white thickers. My son just finished reading the Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief. So use that. And again, I think I just found that when I Googled the book and did a screenshot and printed it out. So that's a great way to get additional images, particularly weeks that you don't have a lot of photos. I did the same thing with the Godzilla advertisement as well, because it was actually a fairly light photo week. So by using the cover of the book and the movie, that gave me some more images to incorporate into this particular layout. All right, so now I'm picking up the So Proud that I want to use on this page. And I have to say, I love the way that green pops against the black and white photo, and I don't think it would have popped as much if it had been a color photo. All right, so using a label. And I also played around earlier in the week with paint, stamping with acrylic paint on the wood veneer. So that's what I was kind of playing around with. My son is dyslexic. And for those of you who have children with any types of learning differences, you know it is a phenomenal journey. And this has been a tearful but amazing journey as his parents. And this year for him has been really wonderful. He's found a lot of success, and I just can't describe the pride that I feel for him, and just to see him really begin to blossom and feel a sense of accomplishment and confidence. So, anyway, I digress. But that's why I really wanted this particular photo to just kind of pop, and using it and doing it in black and white for me just kind of gave it a sense of depth that I think maybe it would not have had otherwise. And so that Dr. Seuss poem and the journaling at the bottom accompanies the photo, and it's kind of special journaling for him. So initially I was going to use that Project Life card as is, and then I decided that I needed some green on the right side of the layout, number one, and number two, I needed some paint, some more paint, or the gelatos on the right side of the page, kind of to balance the title card. And so I ended up cutting up the Studio Calico Project Life card, and I'd previously played around and made that frame, that green frame, last week when I was just experimenting with the gelatos. That green frame is from probably 2 or 3 years ago, a stamp from Studio Calico. So I just pulled it out and I like the way it looked. So when I play, I keep my my experimentations because sometimes they're great to incorporate on a layout. Okay. So I'm going to use that little heart that I stamped onto some wood veneer. Now I thought that I would just use this wood veneer straight, but it actually is fairly flimsy, and so what I discovered is that I needed to trim it down just a bit and actually place it on top of one of the white cards because it seemed like it was kind of bowing a bit, and I didn't like that. So now I've got wood veneer on the left, wood veneer on the right. I've got green kind of gelatos paint on the left, the same on the right. Little bits of the pattern paper scattered throughout the layout. So things seem to be coming together. And by adding this printable currently card, that gives me the blue on the left and the blue on the right. Now look, you don't always have to balance everything, but when it's possible and when it just kind of works itself out, I like having that kind of balance, that symmetry between the two pages. The other thing that I often do is that I don't tend to have a photo on top of a photo. So if you look on this page, like the card that I'm working on now, the photo's on the left. So down below, I have a Studio Calico card, and the photo, or the screenshot photo, if you will, is on the right. And then it's just kind of the same scenario on the right-hand part of the right-hand page of this layout, where I may have a photo on the right, but then down below, I'll have a photo on the left. I don't know why I do that. I don't know when I started doing that, but that seems to be my thing. It doesn't always happen that way, but particularly if like the week is photo heavy, but this week is not. I struggle with figuring out what I wanted to put on this wood veneer card. Playing with that, I don't really like the way that looks, but I go ahead and adhere it down just to see, and that little circle punch didn't really work for me. So I go into my little stash of random bits of goodies and see if I can find anything that seems appealing to me at all. Looking. All right, I have some options. I like the high. I decide the high is way better. At this point, my camera is going to cut off, and so what you're going to see are just kind of the finished layout. So this is what that card ends up looking like. My husband and I like to walk to the farmer's market on Saturday morning, and I totally love doing that. I like the way these cards turned out. The green from the gelatos, and kind of balancing of the green and the pinks and even the black pattern paper really worked out nicely. So I like this layout, and although it seemed like a fairly light photo page, I think overall everything balanced together quite well. So thanks for stopping by. Hope you'll try some of these techniques. Play with some gelatos or your paints or your inks, but absolutely try masking. It's a great technique. Take care. Love you. Hair cooks. Bye.